fact is, if people want to do anything in this industry, hell yes, they have to listen to us. They have to answer to us, is a better way of putting it.
Senate means something. It's the reason why Senate does well in the marketplace, because you either like it or you hate it. It's the reason why FR does well in the marketplace, because you're either FR or you're not FR. And if you're FR till you die. And if you're Senate till you die.
Those were the founding members of Senate talking in the It's All Good documentary. And this is How to Be Unpopular podcast. Not sure. Forgot to check the number before doing this. I was supposed to do this on the last day of 2017. So happy 2018. 2017 was a very great year for skating. Every day is a great year for skating, because if you're alive and healthy and able to skate, that's a good year for skating. That's all that matters, really. 2018's been interesting, though. Dirtbox no more on the first day, the first day of 2018. The Dave Lang post was really interesting. Still waiting for that Blader Union open letter from Jacob Barnes. There was rumors about aggressive mall and rumors about the Seba but whatever. There will always be skates available, and there will always be people skating. There's that quote in Hoax 2. I don't know what skating's going to be like in the future, but I always know there's going to be people skating. Doing the Best of Blade 2017 this year, I realized how diverse. I think it started kind of in 2010 with the power blading stuff and Dustin and Richie going to Barcelona, and Imagine Blade Shun once that came out. Haitian Mag, I don't know, there's a bunch of little bits and pieces. Dirtbox especially. There was kind of an opening up in skating, slowly getting more diverse at the starting of the decade. And now as we're getting closer to the end of a decade, which is insane, because a lot of people said that, a lot of people think that rollerblading is dead and that aggressive skating died off completely. And it's funny that now we're almost going to be 2 decades into, people already thought it died, but we've been doing it for 2 decades after people thought it died, which is awesome. Anyways, going into 2020, the end of this decade, I just love all of the different styles of skating, all the different products and experiments, and I just really like where it's at. And again, if you're happy or if you're healthy and able to skate and alive on planet Earth, that's pretty good. I remember we would talk about for a long time there, it felt like it was amazing that there were actually that many skate companies and products being made for how niche and small the sport actually was. People often forget that the original boom of rollerblading funded aggressive skating, that while aggressive skates were selling a lot, just traditional recreational skates, speed skates, other kinds of skates, they were selling like hotcakes. I think B. Harden talks about it in, I think there's a quote in Barely Dead, or maybe it's bonus footage of him talking, where he said K2 were selling skates like Waffle House pancakes. And then I think he goes into how that always fed into aggressive. So it's amazing that that the niche within a niche within a niche of aggressive inline skating, that we have so many companies making skates and having a go at making products and things. It's great. Another thing that's really cool, but I know for some people it's not, nobody is really getting paid to skate, even the best of the best. If you believe in karma or someone getting what they deserve in a good way. The fact that Haffey won that $250,000 trick shot thing that's the kind of payday that you want to see for someone like that. It's funny that it's not that the amount of effort that he put into skating, he should be getting $250,000 for it. But I mean, if he gets paid in a unique way, that's great. But yeah, everybody who's doing things in skating, kind of how I talked about doing a full-length project or working on something bigger. I think a lot of people know that nobody really cares, that we just care about the niche within the niche within the niche. And people just want to make stuff. Nobody's getting paid. Some people, it'd be great if they were getting paid, but if they're going to skate anyway, regardless, I think that's amazing. That's a very healthy, pure way of doing a sport, art, lifestyle, activity, hobby, whatever you want to think of it. And I would say that the sport is maturing, but throw social media into the mix, and I'm not sure from that angle if it's maturing. But in terms of our average age, God, we must be 30 now, the average age. Going through those best of blades is insane. I go through every Instagram post that I posted on the account, and every Facebook post throughout the year, starting at the very first post on January 1st of 2017. It's amazing how much stuff gets made and created. It's hard to keep up. So I think it's good to do those reflection things, even just as even if it's there's lots of funny awards and things. It's a great look back on the history, because I guess the videos were traditionally, and video creators were the historians of the sport, but now that there's Facebook posts and Instagram posts, there's so much to document and try and highlight. So hopefully we keep doing it over the years. It's a lot of work. I think it took 2 solid 7-hour shifts, 2 days in a row, 7-hour shifts, and you start to go insane because you have to look at every single post. Anyways, I'm very excited about 2018. Novelty seems to be increasing in the rollerblading world. Where will we be at the beginning of the new decade? Who knows? This is more related to over the holidays. Some of these notes are older, but I didn't like the new Star Wars movie. I was a pretty big Star Wars fan when I was younger, and then I didn't like the prequels, and then the nostalgia rush of Force Awakens is really good. I'm relating this to rollerblading, so if you can bear with me here. The nostalgia rush of Force Awakens was really great. Really didn't like Rogue One. Rogue One was the beginning of my hanging to being a Star Wars fan by a thread. Predictably, I really like Empire Strikes Back. And Yoda's my favorite character. I think it was because I think being a Star Wars fan, and why these comic book movies are huge, which I'm not, they're very average, those comic book movies. So I'm not a huge fan of those, but in terms of being a Star Wars fan, because a lot of us don't grow up with organized religion, although I was baptized. I think my grandparents wanted me to be. Star Wars and comic books and all this stuff, these are kind of like our our way to get myths and stories to aspire to greatness and all that. So I think later you learn that Star Wars is just lots of stuff borrowed from Japanese films and Joseph Campbell's Hero's Journey and Hero with a Thousand Faces, and that it's a lot of stuff that's been around for thousands of years but just delivered in a great pop culture American way. That's what Star Wars was. They're also just a series of blockbuster movies from the 70s and 80s that caught on because of myths. So myths and space wars to young kids. So it's really funny that Disney buys Star Wars. And Star Wars could have easily gone the way of aggressive inline skating. Although I guess it's way bigger than that. But I remember watching Rogue One and having this weird feeling of this. I don't think we even need to have more Star Wars movies. Like, this does not have to be called Star Wars. And then watching the newest movie, it felt like it felt very Disneyfied and watered down, and I had this weird feeling that, you know, if Senate or Mind Game got bought out by a large company and aggressive nostalgia was huge and they knew that these properties, Senate and Mind Game, were really important to resell back to the aggressive inline boom of 2022, something should just stay in the past and just be good in that moment in time, and we should allow room for new things. And nostalgia is great. Feels good to do a nostalgia burst once in a while, but I don't think Star Wars needed to come back in any way, shape, or form. And I don't think Senate or Mind Game ever needs to come back. Let's just look at my notes here. Same thing as Nike and in skateboarding. Just these stories of shareholders and I mean, it sounds corny that I'm talking about this stuff, but the story happens over and over and over again, that something gets bought that used to be special, and then it just gets watered down, and just the cash, just a cash cow, cash squeezed from something that used to be special. And there's going to be Star Wars films coming out until I'm dead, probably. They're just going to milk this thing. And it's kind of hard to put into words, but the best way I can describe it is if Mind Game or Senate came back, there might be some excitement out of nostalgia, which is kind of what The Force Awakens was. But then the more it keeps going, you know it's not the same, and you know it was pointless to bring it back. And then there's fandom around these things that will participate and support it no matter what. So the idea of Disney buying Star Wars is like they're buying the fan base too. And it's not exactly special anymore. Anyways, I wanted to get that out of the way. And it reminds me why skating is great. Kind of what I was talking about at the start of the podcast is that it's small and niche, and nobody's getting paid to do it. People are making stuff and sharing stuff, and it's pretty goddamn underground. I mean, with social media now, it's not, but in terms of if people even think aggressive inline skating is a thing anymore, I don't think they do. It's you won't see it on TV. It's not offered at Woodward. I think that's such a good thing, though. I think that it's great to be a part of something like that. Yeah. Sorry, I lost my train of thought. I was just wanted to get that if Senate and Mind Game ever came back, it would be just as bad as Star Wars coming back. I'm also dealing just with getting older and realizing that Star Wars is definitely not special or unique in any way. I don't even know how that movie was so far from what I thought it was going to be. And it wasn't, like, after I watched it, there's some movies that you watch and then watch again and like it more. I knew for sure that I did not like that movie. And we can move on now. I posted that snowblading footage from 1998 or 1999. I can't remember what it was. And I didn't have ski elders back then. I wish I did. Although it's funny, in the history of free skiing, as they call it, Jason Leventhal, who first started out on line ski boards, they really sweep that under the rug that the first twin tip skis were actually line, and that when skiing was first in the X Games, it was actually skiboarding / snowblading. But they're like, can we? No, we're not. We don't really want anybody to know that. So then Solomon releases this documentary recently about the 1080 ski. God, I hate when they do that. I was watching the recent Solomon 1080 ski 20th anniversary thing. And when they do the Offspring song comes on, and it's a montage of crazy tricks. Look at it. Look at how punk rock and counterculture. They even had a thing where they like cut of a snowblader. Not that I know that snowblading is funny in retrospect, and it's not the correct technology for the mountain. There's better technology. But Solomon fucking made snowblades, and in this 1080 thing, they show like a snowblader hitting a jump in Whistler in 1997 or something like that, and the soundbite, somebody talking, skiing was lame in the early 90s or whatever. And it's amazing how, as a large company, you can kind of sweep some history under the rug and put some money into a documentary and shape your story a different way. I'm really looking forward to the if there's a power slide documentary in 2030 where it'll just say that power blading came out, and then tri-skates came out, and skating was changed forever. Big wheels caught on. It's funny how if you have enough money, like if they had a lot of money, you could just market a story where the history is what you want it to be. Yeah, if there's ever some giant company that makes a skating documentary about the rise of big wheels, you definitely won't hear anything about Seba or Wizards in it, I'm sure. But just remember, you heard it here. There were many factors in the rise of big wheels. I think one of it is that we're old. And when you try big wheels again, it connects you to the first time you tried skates. I remember Richie said that about when physics came out. He said you got that feeling of first trying rec skates when you tried physics. Anyways, I didn't have ski elders, so I wish I did. I think I would have stuck with skiing more instead of being away from it for a long time and returning. But even looking at this footage from back then, it's an accessibility problem that's still really annoying to have to drive to a mountain. Be awesome to live in a town where the mountain was right there and you could just walk to the chairlift. And also, a pass for a day costs as much as like a full set of wheels, or you could save that money for film stuff, film Super 8 film, or traveling for the summer. Anyways, it just made me think of that. That snowblading was really fun, but I wish that there was some kind of ski mentor where I put more effort into skiing over time, because my body, I don't have a body that's going to want to hit a 50-foot kicker or try and hit rails on street. Turning 36, keep it low impact, And I went street skiing the first time. I had it in the back of my head for the longest time that I wanted to go street skiing. But for some weird reason, I thought it felt so weird to drive somewhere and have skis and boots and put them on and figure out what to do. It was watching the Bunch videos and what they do. It's so close to how we look at skating here in Kamloops, and the experimentation in their skiing was really inspiring. And it took me a while to realize that it's basically the exact same thing as me going for a solo session on my skates. So it was 3 years later, I went to a school by my house and started messing around on the skis. It was really fun. Hard on the knee because it was kind of icy, but I hope to do that more. Not a lot, but it was free. I just drove in a car 2 minutes down the street, didn't pay any money for a lift ticket, and got the same feeling in the wintertime that I get from skating. But very challenging. People talk about how to aggressive inline skaters, a 280 to 300 millimeter frame, skis, you going skiing with those? And my skis are 1800 millimeters and 182 centimeter skis. Back in maybe 20 years ago, those would have been joked as snowblades. The world is so twisted. I get so confused sometimes if we are actually in a simulation or a elaborate movie that they keep throwing bits of novelty in. Red Bull Crashed Ice is still such a good example of how you can just dress up some old shit in some new shit and people think it's new. The same reason that skis are inspired by snowblades. Modern skis are giant snowblades. But then there's all the humor of like, oh, snowblades. But it's the exact same fucking thing. It's just bigger. It's exactly this. Anyways. It drives me insane. I hope we don't go towards the idiocracy world, which we are currently. And I hope we go to an intelligent, open-minded world. But, yeah. Ice skate hiking. My God. I will be sharing lots of old footage over the next 2 years. So prepare yourself. Either unsubscribe or unfollow from social channels or YouTube. I have every single tape since the beginning. So that's 21 or 22 years of footage, or maybe more. There might be 1995, 1994. 23 years of footage. I didn't ever tape over tapes. I was very bad at labeling in my marijuana smoking days. Also, just being a teenager or a 20-year-old male, the idea of putting the date, the project, and the year on the tape, it's so obvious, and it would feel incredible to just be able to organize my tapes that way. But no, there was no process. There's tapes just with the name Slop Face or Ballin' and Skating, and entertaining, but difficult to have to eventually. I want to organize every tape. There'll be a box with the video name that all that footage was for, and I'll have all the tapes, any kind of art or notes or notebook related to that, and I want to have everything organized in a box, if that makes sense. So it would have the video name, the year, and hopefully chronologically I have everything organized. And yeah, capturing everything, because we started the new project, the 2-year project, yesterday. And it's actually very nice to be able to come home after filming and not, although I love doing it, but right after the session, I would usually edit for 2 or 3 hours and put an edit out. And did that quite a bit for quite a long time. So it's going to be really nice to not edit, to just have the footage and just stack footy for 2 years. Just stack footy for a big full-length project. Start stacking. Anyways, so I have more time because I'm not editing other things to capture old footage. And it has to be interesting though. I'm not just going to put up, like, even I cut things out and try and make it somewhat digestible in this current day and age when I put it up on YouTube. So I'll try and still keep it interesting. And then I'm not going to put up everything, because I also want to take notes and reflect on all the skating history and eventually create something new out of old stuff. But I won't reuse anything that I've posted, if that makes sense. Because there's really funny ideas, stories, and things that you notice about skating, to the point that I imagine it like a narrated documentary type thing that I talk over the footage, and it has a story, and it would go chronologically, it would kind of tell the history of skating and the story of skating, but through a group of kids in a small town that continued to do it up until they're 40 or 50. I don't know when I would put that out, but I know the story's still happening, so there's no point in making anything yet. You want to have a very long view of it to be able to reflect. Anyways, one thing I noticed is that we got way shittier at skating when we turned 19, 20, because of that was the legal drinking age in Canada. And you discover things like, drinking and going to a nightclub, and just it wasn't that there was bad footage. It's just, it was less, the footage when you're kind of still in high school and going to skate downtown after school, or skating after school. There's a energy to it. That's that young person energy where you haven't discovered alcohol or anything, or alcohol. Weed was later, and there's a purity to it, an energy to it of where you can feel it in the footage that all you want to do is have your skates on and skate. And then later it has this weird like go to a rail and collect footage for something that you think people are gonna care to watch, even though they didn't really. Hard to explain, but you can kind of feel it and see it in the footage that there's clear eras. But I understand why a lot of people who discover girls, alcohol, drugs, cars, all that shit, people fall out of the sport kind of after high school, going into that early 20s phase. So yeah, 2-year project. I just have mushroom plating 7, 2-year project. And then in quotations, nothing is desired and all outcomes are perfect. It's a quote from this weird book, Zen Filmmaking, from this weirdo Scott Shaw, where there's these 6 tenets of Zen filmmaking, but not spiritual Zen as you would think about it, more a weird Zen where he branded this. You just need to look up Scott Shaw. I think he did the Rollerblade 7, but his ideas relate a lot to making a skate video. And there's the one quote, ultimately in Zen filmmaking, nothing is desired and all outcomes are perfect. So the idea of just filming, skating, living, capturing for 2 years, not posting any edits, any new edits or new footage for 2 years, and then making something out of all that's collected is very exciting to me, because it switches up the process and the way you think about making stuff and filming everything. And I gotta say, over the break and over the last couple weeks, I've been watching a lot of Greg Stump films, famous ski filmmaker. And I don't like calling people filmmakers, but he actually was a filmmaker in terms of how he put his things together. Blizzard of Oz is what he's most famously known for. He's famously known for coining the word extreme, which I think came from the French, the skiers of the extreme, they would say, or something that sounded like that. And he used the word extreme skiing. I don't know if you can hear a dog snoring. Hank's snoring away. King Charles Spaniel snoring. He used the word extreme in his ski films. I think his first film was 1982 or 3, and then it goes all the way up until 1994. I haven't seen all of them. I tried to watch everything I could. I think I've seen 6 now. But if you watch one, just watch Blizzard of Oz from 1989. Because, the extreme games and all that, and extreme sports happened far after Blizzard of Oz. But it was that film and Glenn Plake and Scott Schmidt and Glenn Plake were on the Today Show talking about extreme skiing, and it was that and Blizzard of Oz launched skiing into kind of a new era. And that's a whole other thing to talk about, how after the extreme games and World Industries took over, skateboarding and snowboarding came up. We're kind of in this strange tone of all of that up until now. You can feel things breaking out of it slowly, but these old Greg Stump films are so unpretentious and free, amazingly put together. Free as in you feel the freedom of skiing. There was no tricks really, and there was no, they weren't grinding on skis yet. They really like to go fast down a hill and off cliffs, and it's super refreshing to watch. And there's a lot of Greg Stump connections to rollerblading, and even to my influences without knowing that Greg Stump influenced them. So Greg Stump made the early rollerblade promos that would have played in ski shops or sport shops. There's Rollerblade The Ride Continues, and maybe he made two. And there's also rollerblading footage that I posted some in an Instagram story, or maybe I posted it on Instagram, I can't remember, from 1989. He was doing the early promo rollerblade stuff. And there's an opening shot in Blizzard of Oz, which is arguably the most legendary ski or extreme sports film of all time. There's people going down a hill on rollerblades, and then it dissolves into people going down hill on skis. I think a lot of people were counting on the whole ski skate crossover thing, and later on you realize they're not the same thing. They're kind of related in some ways, but I don't think they'll ever cross like the way they were originally marketed. So it makes sense why they got Greg Stump's ability to show speed and freedom and carving, his eye for shots, the music that he chose, the interviews with the athletes. Really, really talented dude. I can't wait to see more of his videos. One of his videos, I think it's Maltese Flamingo, was fucking Tony Hawk's first video appearance. I found that out on Mike Powell's podcast. And I think it's Maltese Flamingo. I'm not totally sure, but it has skiing, snowboarding, surfing, rollerblading, skateboarding, and BMX in it. And the early days of extreme sports, or these sports, I mean, skiing or skateboarding and BMX in 1989 had that same, rollerblading definitely, because it was a new sport, but this unpretentious, uncool, genuine, pure vibe of pizzazz and energy and a neon flash. And I think skating's missing a lot of that now. I don't know if that's the influence of skateboarding or the idea of cool. There's a lot there, and I need to watch and study his films more. But he ended up being a huge influence on T-Bone Films. So without Greg Stump, the Hoax films, especially Hoax 2 and Hoax 3, there's Greg Stump fingerprints all over that in terms of the way the interviews are, the shots, the music cues. You'll see if you watch a Greg Stump film, you'll realize it feels like a T-Bone film. And then a local show here in town before Jackass and CKY and Tom Green and all that. I can't remember, it was either his cousin or auntie or somebody in his family knew Greg Stump, the creator of the show Euphoria Emporium, learned to edit from Greg Stump. It was a local cable access show that played only in Kamloops. This is before the internet. This was the early 90s. It was half an hour. It played on, I can't remember what night, but we would stay up to watch it, or we'd tape it, and it was a skit show, but also a Canadian British kind of sense of humor, really weird, had the same kind of energy and feel of that skate, ski, snow, surf. There was Greg Stump segments that played in the middle of it. He learned to edit from Greg Stump. So two of my biggest influences, which was Hoax 2 and Euphoria Emporium, which big influence on Cirque du Soleil, Monty Python too, but I'm sure Euphoria Emporium was influenced by Monty Python too. That British Canadian humor that's a little bit different than American humor. And I'm not sure what that is, but it's just there. But yeah, Greg Stump influenced so much of what I learned about making videos and shooting, and he influenced he influenced the early image of rollerblading. You look at the neon flash in his films, what became the neon flash on rollerblades. And I posted it before, but Glenn Plake and I can't remember Sean something, famous like snowboarder from way back in the day, they're in one of the early rollerblade promos. Everybody knows the image of Glenn Plake with his mohawk when he rode for K2. There's the extremely different poster, him and Scott Schmidt. Pretty amazing image, but people know the skiing guy with the mohawk image. It's one of the classic like extreme sports images, and to see him in one of the early rollerblade promos was a big surprise. I'm sure he regrets it, but yeah, rollerblading just didn't blow up with skiers the way it was intended to, and I think with good reason. They're definitely not. They're similar, but not at the same time. Oh, where are we at? 43 minutes. Okay, I'll try and wrap this up. Going through this old footage, I posted the Whistler footage and the Vancouver comp with the blue ramps. And Todd and I'm in the early M12s with no heel plate. He has tarmacs or box cars, pretty much the same boot, with no heel plate. And we have no sole plates. And you can tell, I mean, we complain about small sole spaces now. There is no heel plate. The sole space is tiny on those skates. And the Royale is really nestled nicely into the boot. And now I understand why Todd just recently got Solomon's, and I wasn't expecting to like my V13s or M12s, whatever you want to call them, as much as I did. And I realized that a lot of our earliest, the first time we learned the new tricks when they came out, so Royales, Unities, backslides, kind grind, sweat stance, etc., torque sole. We weren't big on the Favres, but we learned the posture and the position that we go in on skates that were vastly different than giant ping pong paddle soles you see now. And we weren't super technical grinders. We never really got into that part of skating. So I understand more watching this old footage why people gravitate towards our V13s, Solomons, and the sole doesn't have to be giant, and the Royale angle is closer to what you learned on. Yeah, and that sole plates don't need to be giant. So anyways, that was just a thought that the skates that we learn on kind of create an imprint of how a skate should feel, and also how we do our grind postures. Yeah, you don't need a giant sole plate, and Royales feel shitty on a lot of skates. And a lot of people have really good style in M12s, V13s, and Solomons. There's something there. Think about it. The last thing that I have here is that watching these old tapes and skating for this long without falling out of it, I've thought of the idea of skating is something that we find, even if it's pointless to other people and not important to other people, it's something that we find meaning in. At least I did. That if you're looking for meaning or looking for something, I mean, I guess going back to Star Wars, people find meaning in Star Wars, so it's important to them, but it's a little dark when Disney owns the thing that they find meaning in. But hey, do what you want to do. Skating is... Yeah, okay. The note that I have here is finding meaning in skating beyond just a sport or activity, a connection to something greater. Yeah, the more I watch this old footage and the more I think about how obsessed I still am with skating, I was able to find something in skating that I wasn't able to find in traditional sport. I'm sure people find it in music or art, or obviously circumstances could have been different. I could have got into skiing at a young age. You know, there's things that you just get hooked into or locked into at an impressionable age, and there will be people doing a podcast that sounds exactly like this one day, but talking about scooters or unicycles or Pokemon cards. I mean, the the curve of niche things now or the graph goes so wide. So it'll be interesting to see what Disney wants to buy next. Buy Marvel Comics, buy Star Wars, buy Fox. That one is crazy. In some ways they own, because Viceland is run by or over, Spike Jonze oversees it, and they have a lot of skateboarding programming. It's fucking crazy to think that Disney owns Epically Latered. Maybe they don't own 100% of it, but when I looked at the graph thing, they do. That's very scary. So just appreciate that the thing that you find meaning in hasn't been bought and sold. Skating is great that way. All these activities are great that you can find meaning beyond traditional sport or activity. That's everything. I just have a quote here. Remember when the Vancouver riots were happening, the riots when the Canucks lost in the Stanley Cup final? I think that's what happened. I'd have to look that up for historical accuracy. I remember somebody in the comments said, sports spectacles fill the gaping hole that organized religion left behind. And I think when people get into things like aggressive inline skating, skateboarding, skiing, snowboarding, Star Wars, Pokemon cards, I think we want to have something to believe in, or find meaning in, or maybe it's just a fun activity. It doesn't have to be overthought. It's just, skating actually is just a weird hobby that you do, a weird activity. But if you're very ingrained in the history of it and a huge nerd about it, it can be more than that. I lost my train of thought. Thank you for listening. You're either FR till you die, or you send it till you die.